Welcome back. This episode is very special to Eugene and I. This is where we brought on none other than Ejay Cruz, the host of Parables Podcasts. He has honed his interview abilities, superpowers at this point, interviewing some amazing entrepreneurs and celebrities. And we are excited to dive a bit deeper into both Eugene and I's past, our motivations, our history, and what has led us to start this podcast dedicated to excellence and dedicated to each and every one of you. As always, a little bit of housekeeping. If you find value in this episode, make sure to subscribe, share with a friend. We don't run ads. We only grow by the value that we give you. And if that value is sufficient, we hope that you'll share with some family, friends, and leave us a review. Let's get started.
And we are back in the building with another episode of the Dedication to Excellence podcast. I am your host, Eugene Tamampos, alongside my co-host, Dustin Reyna. And today we got a very special episode where we're switching it up a bit. So our podcast has been growing and we've been knocking out episode after episode. And it occurred to us that we've never introduced ourselves. And so at this point, most of our audience probably has no idea who the hell we are. So we figured we'd say hello. For this show, we are going to be guests on our own podcast getting interviewed. And to interview us, I couldn't think of anyone better than my brother, Ejay Cruz, who is the host of his own Top 100 podcast, The Parables. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And Ejay was low-key the one who inspired this whole show. So again, couldn't think of anyone better. Be sure you check out his interview as well. We just dropped his episode. Definitely fire. He drops nugget after nugget. Mr. Ejay Cruz, my bro, welcome back to the Dedication to Excellence.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys having me back. By the way, Dedication to Excellence podcast hosted by your boy, Ejay Cruz. I'm just playing.
You know, snatched it already.
Yeah, already taking credit, right? I appreciate you guys, man. This is very, very exciting. To get to know you guys, you know, it's definitely going to bring a whole new light, you know, in regards to the audience. I know you guys are scaling and growing very, very good. So again, this is very, very exciting. A lot of pressure, man, and expectation. So I hope I meet it. Actually, I know I will. We good.
You got it, bro.
But yeah. So man.
So with that, man, really, I'm just turning it to you, man.
Yeah, man. So why don't we begin? You know, I think it's very, very interesting for a couple of things. You know, when we talk about a podcast, right? Usually a podcast, especially when it comes to you know, interview style, you guys are bringing on some pretty amazing, remarkable people, right? And you know, the podcast is really to you know, give some wisdom, give some actionable steps, and really shed light in this entrepreneurial world that, you know, I think sometimes people are overlooking, right? There's like a huge misconception of what the entrepreneurship world looks like. And I think no better way to actually kind of, you know, get some insight from you guys, the hosts, especially you guys have two almost like, I don't want to say polar opposites, but definitely two different backgrounds and, you know, in regards to your entrepreneurship journey. But why don't we start off? I mean, Eugene, obviously I know you. Why don't we start off with Dustin first, man? Dustin, you know, let's get to know you a little bit. You know, clearly I understand you're just a wizard in the digital marketing space. You know, you're an e-com. You got a lot of good things going with you. Clearly that didn't start, you know, you have a background story that's led you to where you are today. You know what I mean? So let's get to know you a little bit, kind of where you grew up. And, you know, I also like to grab different things. And once we get to know you, and what people begin to really see is kind of like, you know, once they start to understand you and your dialogue, they're like, man, you start to see like this match, right? Almost like a parable, right? So yeah. So Dustin, tell us where you're from, you know, kind of your upbringing, what's led you to kind of where you are today.
Yeah, so I'll condense it because we could go on for countless episodes if it came to it. But born in Boise, Idaho, where I reside today. 4 older sisters, so I was the youngest. It's not all what it's chalked up to be. You don't always get to be the spoiled younger brother or I got 4 older sisters. They were terrors. But I would like to say, I grew up with, the best upbringing and wonderful parents and everything. But some of us just aren't always blessed like that. So I had a father who who just didn't know how to. He always wanted his son, but didn't know how to keep his expectations from getting in the way of actually becoming a loving parent.
Hmm.
So from that, he was very verbally abusive. We moved out to Vegas. It got worse once drugs got involved. My sisters just, being older, me being the little bro, just kind of carried us along. My parents would actually disappear for a week or two at a time sometimes, and we just kind of, knew our bus route to school, and getting things going. But that all came to an end when you remember those things back in school. You'd go to knock on doors or so, and you'd it's like a fundraiser. You'd sell some things
Yeah.
that would go to the
Hmm.
school. So during those times where my parents would kind of disappear, my sisters came up with the idea where we would actually just they would go knock on doors, and we would take those orders, but they weren't actually, there was nothing going on at school. It's actually what would keep us going for the time being.
Wow.
So when you got kids going around and people aren't getting orders, the word kind of gets out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So child services ended up picking us up. That was actually, I remember, because that was right around 9/11, because I was in custody around then and watched that happen. And I got sent back to Boise, where I think that was the biggest blessing, because I got sent back to Boise with my grandma, and she kept me in line. She was my saving grace that kind of put me through what I needed to get through. I was an angry kid, had lots of problems, but she powered through it, and she was there. So from that point on, I was just raised in school. Kind of, it just wasn't my thing. Figured I made it all the way down to my junior year, and I was just kind of done with it. It was never my thing. I'm always just kind of a self-starter, just kind of going into my own thing. So got my GED, went to college, figured that would be something different, but definitely wasn't from that point.
Sorry to interrupt. And during high school, right? Obviously, it seemed like you're a little more, it seemed like you were just distracted, right? Like you said, you weren't interested, all that other
Yeah.
stuff. Was there anything that you were doing, like almost kind of like a gateway, an outlet, because school wasn't your thing?
I was still finding myself, man. At that point, I was just getting into trouble. I
Yeah.
was I was
Okay.
hanging around with the wrong people, just getting into trouble. Had too much energy for my own good.
Mm.
Went into college, also just wasn't my thing. Finished about 2 years of that. Got tired of paying for electives and left there. Fitness was always a big thing for me, though. I think it was the structure of it and consistency. So I actually went into personal training, succeeded at that really well, built this owner's gym to multiple locations, grew him, started running gyms, realized that trading hours for money just wasn't viable. So then I started training teams and training sales teams, and selling at a much higher level. And when I decided to try and branch out, the owner of that facility was just kind of a terrible leader. And instead of looking to partner or looking to lead me in a better direction, he's just like, you're lazy, you'll never get anywhere, you'll never do anything, and you tell me something, I'm not going to do something, I'm going to go do it. So took all the information that I learned from growing those businesses, which was taking him social, PPC marketing, and growing the business to what it was, which has since crumbled since I left.
Hmm.
But took that into building other ethical businesses, and that's the model that I kind of reside in. Is I only deal with businesses that have high ethics and morals and are actually contributing back into the community, and that's where I want to help on a much grander scheme, is to provide businesses that are actually helping build the community up on a much higher level and bring them to the forefront. And since then, it's just been on a personal development journey. I've found that mentorship and leadership can be much different than what it was originally. For me, my first experience. And just such as like Andy Frisella, Ed Milet, plenty of amazing mentors. And from there, it's history, man. I've come from an interesting start,
Yeah.
and it's not even over yet, man. I've got my first kid. She's about 3 months old,
Congrats, man.
and I'm just moving along, and I'm building an empire from here for her. So
Yeah. Let's go back, because again, I'm telling you, man, as you guys know too, there's definitely a lot of connections, man, from everything you just said, even though you condensed it, right? Let's
mm,
go back to kind of when you said that, you guys were going door to door and, collecting this money, and basically, you got rounded up and you had to be sent back to Boise, right?
mm.
What was that basically, like survival mode at that point, because of that missing piece of the parents, right? You guys were
Yeah.
doing that to survive, you and your sisters, right? To
Yeah.
make a means end. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that play in regards to, we might be getting a little deep and vulnerable here, but I promise you we're going to get, it's going somewhere. How did that play a role in missing kind of that parental, life? You know what I mean? It seems like they were kind of missing a little bit
Yeah.
from, yeah.
Yeah. I think with me, I would say just I was an angry, broken kid from that. Once I went to my grandma's, it was just kind of like putting the pieces back together, not taking accountability and doing different things. And I think definitely missing out on the parental guidance from that point. My mom, as flawed as she was back then, she was definitely my protector, because my father was just kind of more on the abusive and verbally abusive side. She did well, but yeah, I mean, without that, that's what's driving me today. I'll never be like that. I'll definitely, I've my self-improvement journey is driven to improve every single day, to become a better father, to become a better husband, to make an impact on the next generation, and presently the generation now that's being, guided as we go today. So I'd say you can either take the lessons learned or crumble under the weight of them. And I think I just
Powerful.
I took the lessons from my parents' mistakes, my sister's future mistakes, and learn from them, where I don't think that a lot of people have the self-awareness to look beyond the surface level, look beyond their own emotions. And sometimes just looking a bit deeper can work incredibly to your advantage. Unfortunately, for some of my sisters, it's still kind of victim mentality, where accountability is my number one thing. If I'm doing something wrong, tell me. It's just kind of how we generally operate. Just cut right to the chase,
Yeah.
and let me improve upon it, because I'm not perfect. I gotta eat my humble pie sometimes. So
Yeah. It's almost like a strength and weakness of high operating people, right? It's
mm-hmm.
like, hey, tell me what the issue is, right? Or what's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Almost like lead us to something good, or kind of like put us back in that, that victim mentality state, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like also, I mean, I think it's also safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I get the sense that even though you didn't, that wasn't the life that you probably would have preferred, right? It's definitely led you to kind of, or driven you to who you are, right? I mean,
Oh,
and then now we
completely.
could kind of transition to your old job, right? When you weren't led by a great leader who kind of shot you down. And I know Andy Frisella, right? Both of our mentors. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he's a mentor of both of ours, right? And he talks about this, right? He talks about harnessing the dark side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, with your life events, is it safe to say that you don't regret anything from your past?
I don't regret anything. Yeah. I mean, if any of those events of the past had changed or altered in any way, I don't know the person that I'd be today.
Yeah.
And, I've got a great life with a great wife and a baby. And that's all the blessings I need. It's provided me the relentless perseverance to get, to improve and just provide better for the next generation. So yeah, no, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. And the reason I bring this up, see, this is why I love Dustin, is that a lot of people out there, a lot of people try to leave their past behind them completely, right? But what people don't realize sometimes in order to move forward and to strengthen, right, and to take you places unimaginable, you actually got to harness that past. You know what I mean? That's what it sounds like it's done with you. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So kudos to that, man. Let's shift a little bit, because I know we started pretty deep there, right? But we appreciate the vulnerability, Dustin, because again, like I said, this has led to who you are today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what you're doing now. Digital marketing. You have an agency, if I'm not mistaken, right? Let's talk about that real quick. What does that look like? I mean, you kind of started a little bit and you kind of shed some light on that, but what got you really into that? What does that look like for those out there who are not really familiar with that?
Yeah. When I started, sales was my thing. Sales is still my thing. In person, the energy is just so symbiotic. If I can get around somebody with, high energy, or even just somebody with with a goal, or even my own personal mission, like what fitness was, which is, taking them to that next level for quality of life purposes, for longevity, for the emotion and the life that they wanted to live with their own personal children, just like running, jogging, playing catch, different types of things. That's my energy. And so crossing that into the digital platform, and understanding that it can be achieved at a much higher scale, because sales and marketing are so symbiotic. And in today's world, you can't have one without the other, really. But that's what really led it into. And I think, I love marketing. I am always trying to chip away at perfecting it, even though it's ever evolving. But it's who you align yourself with, and it's kind of like Eugene and I partnering here. I'm never going to be perfect at every one of these pillars, so I align myself with people that are elite in particular areas in my agency. And that's what I've learned to eat that humble pie a little bit too, where I tried to be the jack of all trades, to learn everything, and realize that I just burned myself out. And so I've partnered with, just rock stars in every element of marketing, and so that I can provide the best service, because the quality of the service, what I provide to my clients is my mission for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not able to do that 110% every single time for my customer, then I have somebody, either on my direct staff or that I've partnered with, that is going to provide that. And so that's the evolution of my agency here, and it's just the morals and kind of the core values that I align myself with for businesses.
Mm-hmm. Does your agency work with any special market at all, or is it just anyone really trying to kind of market their business themselves or
When
anything?
I started, it was directly for the fitness industry, and the fitness industry is a very, very interesting industry. I mean, back
Yeah, dude, crazy. It's
yeah.
wild, man. It's cutthroat, bro, for sure. You know
It
that.
is. You get with any of the veterans in it, and some, even the Gold's Gym days. Anybody that's managed those back in the '80s, they'll be like, "Dude, we were at the bar like downstairs. We were taking shots back with this client. Then we'd just go back up and we'd close like a 3K deal, or we'd be like snorting a line with this guy over here. Back in the day when you could do just certain things before rules were involved." And I'm like, "Gosh, you guys are crazy." And then also just like, hey, if you don't meet your quota, you're done. They'll just wrap you back around to the next one. And that's what I intentionally kind of got into first, because a lot of those old school veterans are still leading the industry today, which is, without them evolving, because they're just kind of like churn and burn, especially with trainers, where they're burning you out, man. They're running you like 13 hours a day. And that's how I started. Every 30 minutes I'd be with somebody new, and it wasn't just training them. I'd be running them through the sales process. I'd just flip and go, flip and go, flip and go, flip and go, flip and go. And one, it's emotionally exhausting, because it's very, you've got to be a chameleon and mirror and match the personalities. So I wanted to dive into that industry and provide an outlet for, lead flow. So things were a little bit easier, and kind of affect change in the industry. But since then, I've definitely evolved outside of that, understanding that, a lot of times that people say niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down. But personally, I believe the pillars are essentially the same. I like a challenge. I like diving into different industries, different new niches, and taking the elements that I've learned in marketing and applying them. And I've yet to find an industry where it doesn't match. So
Yeah, I think that's amazing and exactly what you said, because a lot of people do have, they advice, right? It's like, hey, stick to our particular niche, right? Like, stick to that. But
yeah.
if you're expanding and you're opening your mind and tapping into, these different markets, right? There's different needs for that. There's different strategies on how you do that. And that's only going to expand your skills and your talents, right? On what you do. So I love that, man. So quick, one last question before we shift over to Eugene. What does digital marketing look like in the future, in your opinion, right? For someone that's doing it, who's in it, right? What are you seeing out there, and what's something to give to our listeners, some advice and kind of what you see?
Automation is key. It definitely is, but you can't take the human element out of it completely. A lot of people try and just over automate. A lot of people, even in just prospecting, they're just like, I'll just input the name tags and just blast out, a ton. It's not going to work. You're scattershot. You're just kind of carpet bombing. But you've definitely got to have that human element, and that's where I've done more of a sniper approach with anything that I do, where I deep dive, maybe a custom video or something with people. And in the marketing, personally, 90% of marketers out there right now are just clipboard salesmen. You go to the mall back when we could, it's COVID times right now, but you go to the mall and you got this dude like, hey, let me spray some perfume in your face. Hey, let me
Let me clean your shoes.
yeah, right. Let me show you this little video trailer. Hey, let me do this. Hey, you got a second here, and they're just trying to like, it's almost like you're just like, okay, turn your eyes. Don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. It's the same thing. You're not going to propose to a woman on the first date. That's just weird. That's creepy. You're not going to get that type of commitment. You have nothing. You have no, you don't know them. You don't trust them. They haven't provided any sort of value to you. It's the same thing with marketing. All you see if you scroll through your newsfeed, it's just like buy here, buy here, buy here, buy here, discount. There's only so many vouchers left, time, urgency. Those do sell, but you've got to provide some value up front. And that is what I drive home every single time that I market for any particular client is creating that relationship on the front end so that you've got that loyalty and that back end value of a customer. And that's also just due to the analytics and the amount of information you can gather from somebody as well. Then that just works to your advantage because then you've got all of this data from this warmed up audience that you can repurpose as well. So it's a win-win-win. It's just not playing that, everyone's looking for the quick win. So it's really playing the long game because just like back in the 70s and 80s where people were just tired of the sleazy salesman coming to your door to door, people are getting tired of just getting pitched all the time, and it's showing up in the algorithm as well. So,
So if a client were to, finally expand and tap into digital marketing, maybe working with an agency, what's something they should definitely look for?
Right? Video, or look for in the agency, or look for in the type of marketing they're doing.
Yeah, because I mean, again, I you're talking about basically like, giving value first, right? And then kind of like where it's going. Right. So what's like something like they should definitely be looking out for, like off the jump?
So if you're looking to work with an agency, if they're just going to like cookie cutter, like throw you out with like, hey, let's just do so many vouchers and put this little countdown timer and, let's just throw this lead form out there. Like I'd exercise your ability to, test out different areas. It's kind of like somebody goes, if you're going insurance shopping, you're probably not going to go to the first person that you go, or even house. Like maybe you're just going to check some people out. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you're marketing, the first thing you'd want to do is stock up on video content. Video is the key, and make sure that you have a nice stockpile of that, either just organic video of your location, but mainly, unless you're Nike, Reebok, or any of these Rolex or crazy brands that already have a really big, large following to their image, to their logo, you need to develop an identity. And today's society, it's a person. You need to have someone, a face. It doesn't have to be you, but you need someone to represent your brand so that you can have that relatability, that human element, and you can have somebody trust you, because you're not going to trust some random new logo that's popping out there. Where's the human element? Even today I was looking at somebody's site, consulting them, and they're just like, all these stock photos, you don't even have the name of the people that own the business, you don't have anything, any sort of information. It's just like, did you just take this page and sometimes you got that Latin writing that's automatically in there, that's just like, what is this? Like, you need someone needs to relate to you other than you just being a business or an entity.
Dude, and we just spoke about that before the recording, right? Relativity, resonance, right? How key is that, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy. So let's shift over gears. But before we start talking about Eugene and, kind of where he came from and his upbringing, I actually want to do a reverse thing here. Tell me how you guys first met before we dive into Eugene's background. How did you guys meet? I wanted to do this. It's kind of like that show where like, the show's going on, and then like in the middle, it goes back to like, 3 days earlier.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, I swiped right, and then
Well, it's funny. The reason why I asked is because even sometimes, man, like the different, I guess, angle or the different viewpoint of how you guys met could differ. So I'm just curious if that's
all right. So I'll tell my version, and Dustin, you can tell yours, because we actually just discussed this recently. It turns out, Dustin reminded me that we met at an event. It was an event where Daniel D. Piazza, who's a awesome marketer, author, he was doing a little speaking event here in San Francisco that I actually live across the street from where that event was. So it's funny how things come full circle. But met Dustin there. I think I probably tried recruiting him to Legal Shield. I did recruit him to Legal Shield. actually. And then all I remember, bro, is after that, we hung out at a couple more business seminars. But where I really was like, yo, this is a cool motherfucker, is when we went to First Fridays in Oakland and got turned up together for the first time. And I just remember, I think we had a few drinks and we were walking down the street and you and I both wanted to smoke and some random person had a blunt. And I was like, hey, bro, if I give you $1, can we hit that blunt? And he was like, nah, go ahead. So he let both of us hit the blunt. And then, yeah, bro, after that, I think you moved back to, yeah, pre-COVID days. But I think after that, the last thing I remember for a while is you borrowed my duffel bag and moved back to Boise, and I never saw you or that duffel bag again.
Yeah, man, that was crazy.
You know what? That's the first time I ever heard someone who pitched someone else some money just to take a hit off their blunt. That's the first time I've ever heard that, man.
You got to provide value first before the ask.
Exactly right.
So, practice what you preach, right?
That was a fun day. I still get little reminders of the videos I had of that day. It's hilarious.
Oh, shoot him over, man.
I'll find him.
But that's my version of the story.
Play it right now. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. And moving forward and kind of what you guys are doing now. It's funny how the relationship starts, right? And where that could lead to. But anyway, Eugene, Dustin knows a lot about you. I know a little bit about you from your time living with me. Let's talk about you, man. Let's talk about kind of where you grew up. You have an interesting background as well. Take it from here, man.
Damn, I gotta follow Dustin. That was a dope shit. I damn near want to give you the rest of the interview, bro. We could do a part 3 with me. I mean, my story, man. I mean, there's so many facets to it, but I guess the general, wide-reaching version is I grew up just average, bro. I was told, you go to school, get good grades, get a good job. I had my share of adversities growing up. I think everyone does. But one thing that I can definitely identify from an early age is I always had this vision for wanting more. I think that stemmed from watching the MTV Cribs as a kid, watching these NBA players. I wanted to be in the NBA, half because I love basketball, half because I was like, yo, they look like they live pretty dope lives. Like I remember Penny Hardaway had his own basketball gym on MTV Cribs. I'm like, bro, I want one of those. And here I am, my parents never gave me shit coming from nothing. They wanted me to earn every single thing I got. So it was Payless shoes and hand-me-downs. I'm talking like hand-me-downs, bro. Like, how as Filipinos, we send shit back to the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was wearing the shit that got sent back to the Philippines and then got sent back to the States somehow. Like this was like real hand-me-down shit. And so as a kid with all the other cool Filipinos like EJ over here having the new Jordans and shit, here I am with my Payless shoes that got holes in them. That leaves an impression on you, So I always had that hunger in me. I didn't know it would ever translate into anything in the business world because I wasn't familiar with the business world. Again, I grew up in a Filipino household. We were told to go be a nurse or whatever, be an engineer, like all that. But the thing is school was I never enjoyed school. I was smart. And shout out to my grandma. I love how you talked about your grandma, Dustin, because, I feel like grandmas be lifesavers sometimes. But from a very young age, I can remember my grandma telling me, I just remember her saying I would take these math tests for fun when I was 4 or 5 years old staying at her house. And she would always go, oh, baby, you're so bright. You're so bright. And that stuck with me, bro. Wow, that's the first time someone really spoke life into me and told me I was smart. So anyway, shout out to my grandma. So I knew I was smart. I hated studying. I would always much rather go out and party or chase the girls or do everything but school. And so I finessed my way through high school. Because I got good at this collaboration thing at a very young age. Because, in the real world, working with others is called collaborating, smart business strategy. In school, it's called cheating. So it's crazy how they program people to not actually be successful entrepreneurs. But I guess I never really cared about rules much. And so finessed my way through high school, got into college, community college. And at that point, I was just like, bruh, this shit sucks. I've been here for a few years. I switched my major every other semester. Nothing.
What was your first major? Sorry to interrupt. What was your first major? I'm just curious.
It was what you do when you don't know what the fuck you want to do, and it was psychology. And then,
oh man, true story.
And then after that, you don't know what you want to do. So I took a business. And then I decided, hey, how cool would that be to tell girls I was a firefighter? So then I tried firefighting. Like that was my college days. But it was at that point where I got introduced to network marketing. Well, I didn't get introduced to network marketing. I actually got introduced to network marketing when I was 18. My mom, who, you know, as much friction as we had growing up, I did trust her business acumen because she did go on to become a successful real estate investor and start her own tax business. So whenever my mom was talking about money, I knew that's one thing she understood. So when I was 18, she called me one day saying, hey, there's this thing I want to show you. This guy's going to come over to teach you how to make money. Be home on Saturday. And I'm like, no, I'm 18. It's Saturday. Like, I'm not going to be home. You feel me? Like, I got shit to do. She's like, no, I need you to be home. And we argued about it. So finally, I sat in on this meeting, was pitched network marketing. And I was like, yo, I'm going to be rich in 3 months. Sign me up. Didn't quite work out that way. But when in college, I got reintroduced to the idea of network marketing, I had some context to work with. So when I got involved, I had already learned a few skills from that first time around. I knew how to invite people to see presentations. I knew how to get excited about an idea. I knew how to get excited about my future. And so that's kind of where things took off, man. And then from there, it was just kind of a Forrest Gump journey of entrepreneurship. You know, I ended up building a pretty large team in Legal Shield, still have that team, still have the residual income. But from there, I learned about networking and personal development, started meeting cool people like you guys. I mean, you guys wouldn't have been friends with me before my network marketing experience. I promise you that. Unless you wanted to like party or something, but you guys got families and kids and shit. So, you know, but anyway, yeah. So from there, I went on to meet the gentleman who eventually went on to start Zyral. Then he called me up when he started that company, a tech company here in the Bay Area. And I helped him build that from the ground up. And now we've just recently raised another $2.5 million in funding. And we're on pace to hit our Series A by you know, about this time next year. So the momentum has been great there. And then just through the network of people I've met, man, you know, just again, like Forrest Gump, when the opportunities presented themselves, I just kind of ran with them. An early lesson I learned was POUR is an acronym that stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. And so I figured, hey, if I just say yes to everything, like by just sheer volume, something got to hit. It's like in basketball, bro. Like in life, in the basketball game of life, the goal is to score points. Your shooting percentage does not matter. Okay. So just put up the fucking buckets, keep shooting, and some of them are going to go in. And that's kind of just been my strategy now for the last decade. And it's worked out okay.
Dude, man, that's awesome to hear. You know, one of the things that you said that I really like was the fact that, you know, you felt that you weren't, I guess you could say, smart, right? Because you never got that reinforcement, right? Except for your grandma, right? Like she reinforced how bright you were. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you knew deep down that you're smart. But even then you went to college, right? Things just didn't click, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, my question to you now, looking back at that, right? And now to where you are today, what is being smart or being intelligent? What's intelligence mean to you now?
Being smart to me is understanding that we're actually all not that smart. Like I'm totally okay with knowing that I'm not great at anything. Kind of like what Dustin was talking about earlier. You know, it's about surrounding yourself with the symbiotic relationships. And so that's why like Dustin and I's partnership works so well, is because I know he compliments me to a T. Everything he is good at, I fall asleep over. Okay. And while he's very calm and reserved, I'm a little bit more like extroverted and loud, and, you know, and you need that. If you got like a fancy car, yeah, you want the car to look good on the outside, but you also need to make sure the engine works, you know, and all the inner workings are engineered properly. And so that's why I keep saying he's like the he's the engine that keeps this thing running, and I'm like the shiny exterior that's just loud and obnoxious and attracts attention, right? And so it works out great. But yeah, I mean, I always knew I was smart. It just took being around people like you guys to help me understand that my brand of smart just didn't mold in with the status quo definition of smart. Because growing up, we're taught smart means getting straight A's. Being smart means high SAT scores, getting accepted to the right schools. But what I learned is being smart just means being resourceful and being able to take whatever you've been dealt in life, whatever mindset, whatever circumstances, and make something of it. If you can do that, you're smart. And so that's all I've done, is I've just been resourceful. I learned that the status quo wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to go, at least not the way I wanted to. So what do you do when the circumstances don't align with what you want to accomplish? You create your own fucking circumstances, because that's the beauty of being in America. You can do that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah. I love what you said about being resourceful, because I think a lot of people fail to recognize, like, as humans, we are naturally resilient. And in fact, I think in our DNA, we're meant to be challenged, right? And that makes us automatically resourceful, right? And something that, I think a lot of people fail to realize is we are all resourceful. It doesn't take someone who's a high achiever or someone who's business minded or to be an entrepreneur to be resourceful, right? I think everyone could be freaking
Well,
resourceful.
here's the problem with resourcefulness. You're absolutely correct, because with everyone is resourceful. The problem is like most people apply it to the lowest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're resourceful in order to survive. But once you hit that level of survival, people stop being resourceful enough to get to the next level, right? Yeah. And the next level and the next level. Mm-hmm. So if we need to make a bill, otherwise we're homeless, like people will figure that shit out. They'll start making the calls. They'll see what they can sell, whatever they got to do to make sure that they maintain that level of survival with the roof over their head. But now when you talk about accomplishing your goals and your visions and everything on your dream board, that's a different level of resourcefulness that most people it's not that they can't, to your point, everyone's resourceful. They just never aspire to get to that level when it's a self-imposed limitation.
Mm-hmm. There's also a different sense of urgency, right? We're talking about from one to accomplishing your goals versus like the other one, which is like survival mode. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So there's a different urgency. Let's talk about network marketing real quick. I'm actually curious to know, hopefully you don't mind, what was the company that your mom forced you to hear out?
It was ACN. It was a telecommunications company.
Got it. Yeah.
This 20 network marketing up in a fucking like spaceship, and I'm like, who is this guy?
Dude, obviously network marketing was a huge part of who you are, how you've been able to communicate, market yourself, all that good stuff, right? What would you say is probably like the maybe top 2-3 things you really, really learned from network marketing?
Man, so there's so many ways to answer that. So 3 things. And if you have these 3 things, you can literally accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. First thing is a burning desire. Network marketing, I was already hungry, but network marketing taught me how to be like hungry, because they gave me a vision and a believable route to that vision. So it's like you can want something, but say, oh, yeah, that's like growing up. I thought if you were a millionaire, it's because you won the lottery or you were famous. I didn't know there was an actual practical path to millions that I can traverse. And so network marketing taught me that it was possible. So I became hungry. The second thing was just work ethic, bro. Network marketing gave me things, tangible steps to take, work to put in that I was okay putting in. It was never, I didn't like work. Like school, I didn't do good in school because I just didn't see that work getting me anywhere. And when you don't know why you're doing something, you tend not to do it. But network marketing, I now had a why. So it taught me how to work, put some work behind that vision. And then it taught me how to be coachable and learn and be a student, because I had never been introduced to personal development. I had never read a book front to back, except for like Harry Potter when I was a kid. I really enjoyed Harry Potter. But other than that, I had never really read books until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad front to back, then Business of the 21st Century front to back, then The Slide Edge front to back, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There was a saying, like, you want to OD on PD, and that's what I did. That first year, bro, I probably read more books in that first year of network marketing than I have like to date. if I may be totally like honest here, So those are 3 things. It taught me how to be hungry, have a burning desire, taught me how to put some work behind that desire, and it taught me how to be a student. And if you take those 3 fundamental philosophies and apply that to literally anything, you're not going to be stopped, man.
And well said. Well said. One thing that you said that I really liked, but also I want to get your insight on, and I think this applies to all 3 of us, right? And, for those listening out there who may have trouble trying to grasp that, is opportunities, right? I think lots and lots of times there's so many opportunities that come our way, but at the same time, we don't have enough time.
Sure.
Right. So for you, Eugene, how do you gauge which opportunities to take versus which ones are a waste of time? Right. Because sometimes you could overlook that, right? You could overlook that like crazy. Sometimes you may look back and be like, man, there's no way I skipped up on that. Right. I passed that up. So
great fucking question. And from the outside looking in on my life, it just looks like I say yes to everything. But no, I actually do say no to a lot of things. So it's a 2-step process. So, and this is something I learned from network marketing too, is how to evaluate opportunity. So whenever I'm looking at something or I'm presented something, I run it through these 5 filters. And whether I'm doing it consciously or subconsciously, I feel like, I'm doing this every time. But basically, it's the first thing when you're looking at an opportunity is you want to look at the people associated with the opportunity, right? Who's the leadership? Who are these people all about? Are they legit? Because at the end of the day, businesses are just nothing but a group of people. So if the people are fucked up, it doesn't matter what they're doing. You don't want to fuck with them. You know what I mean? The second thing you want to look at is what is the problem in the world, in the marketplace that this company is looking to address? Is that a problem you're passionate about? Is it a problem you give a shit about? Like that kind of matters, right? I mean, sure, there's companies out there that are doing great things, but at the end of the day, I just don't really care about what they're doing, The third thing is, what is the solution that this company or this opportunity is providing to that problem? And is it a viable solution? And is it a unique solution? Is it a solution that's differentiable from the competitors, right? So you want to evaluate the solution or product or service itself. The fourth thing you want to understand is the timing. Like, is this a good time to get in? Because they say that the T in timing is more important than the T in talent. If some things just happen at the right time and you can, ride the coattails of that to some high levels. And then the last piece is, of course, what is the financial upside here? Like, is there a big enough market to substantiate me giving this my energy? Okay. So I run things through those 5 filters. And then the second question, and arguably more important question, is if I am going to be involved in this, is it going to be an active involvement or a passive involvement? Okay. How logistically, how can I fit this into my life? Like EJ, for example, you and I have our Amazon stores, right? I mean, it's funny to me because like I would, as busy as you and I are, we still figured out a way to work that in because it's passive. But I would share that same opportunity with other people and they would say, well, I don't have the time for that. I'm like, bro, you don't get it. You don't need time. This is completely passive. Yeah, I don't have the time, which is obviously
you literally don't have to do anything.
You literally don't have to do anything. I mean, there's some like administrative shit up front, but people just have their blinders on and they have these knee-jerk objections. I don't have time. Well, I'm not interested. I'm not passionate about it. Blah, blah, fucking blah. Like they're all excuses. Like everything is worth a first date, in my opinion. Everything is worth hearing out, in my opinion, right? Give it 5 to 10 minutes. And, if you like what you hear, like give it more time. But I've never been the type to, when someone runs something by me, to say no, just off the bat, unless I just know they're a shitty person, in which case it doesn't check off that first box of my checklist. And so I move on, So that's how I evaluate opportunity is I run it through those 5 filters. And then I say, okay, if I like those, can I do this actively? And realistically, I can't do many things actively at this time because I have my hands full. But if I can do this passively, then we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm. One time for a lifetime, right? I mean,
exactly.
it's wild. So real quick, before we kind of bring it back, right, for both of you, let's just talk about Zyro real quick, right? Yeah. What is Zyro? Initially, I kind of, you did kind of touch on it, but what's Zyro and what does it look like in the future?
In the future, it looks like Amazon. So here's the way I like to think about it. Is you have the in-person world, you have the online world, and then you have that world that kind of sits in the middle. Think of like Pokemon Go, right? Or augmented reality, okay? Where you're kind of interfacing with the in-person world through digital, okay? So as it stands right now, Zyral, from the outside looking in, is a kiosk company where our technology sits inside of restaurants and allows customers to order to the restaurant via our self-service kiosk. But the bigger play here is not just really a kiosk company. Like that's kind of our Trojan horse to get into businesses. What we're really trying to do is create that digital layer between the in-person world and the online world. So for example, when you shop on an e-commerce site today, you go to Amazon, EJ, Amazon is going to recommend you different items based on what your preferences are as opposed to my preferences. What if we had that same experience whenever we went anywhere? Where I go to a restaurant and now because I'm interfacing with the restaurant through Zyral knows what to recommend me in that restaurant. Hey, welcome back, EJ. You love, we know you don't eat beef. You don't eat red meat. So here are the selections on the menu that don't have beef.
Completely not true, but yeah.
You told me you wasn't like eating something, red meat or something? Pork.
I'm a carnivore, bro. I'm a carnivore.
All right, well, I had that wrong. Anyway, but you get my point. The point is, through Zyral, the customer is now going to be able to interface with whatever business they're at, and there's a digital profile layered over on top of that experience so that now Zyral can recognize their preferences and apply it to whatever business that they're at. So we're trying to own that middle space the way Amazon owns online, the way Walmart owns in person. We want to own that space in between.
Damn, man, that's awesome. Dude, it seems I know you when we lived together, dude, Zyro was just like in a huge transition, and it seems like it's continued to grow exponentially. So
It
kudos
is
to
a
that,
shit
man.
show.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about dedication to excellence. I actually want to know how you guys came about the idea, why you guys did it, and it's interesting to me because one of the biggest questions, or not the biggest question, probably like the number one question I always get is, hey, what are your tips, right, with starting a podcast? And I always tell them, what's your why? And I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's the truth, man. Like, what's your why and who's your target audience? Like, who you guys trying to reach? Okay. And it's surprising because we have, those people who ask, they're all fired up, right? They're just like, oh man, I got this great idea. But then, when I tell them that, they could barely answer it, right? So I want to get an idea of, how, first off, where did the idea come about? What are you guys trying to do with it? And, all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's evolved since its inception. But complimenting people, man, I just reached out to Eugene one day. I'm like, hey, you want to start a podcast? The next week we were recording podcasts.
I think the theme was imperfect action from day one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Eugene, did you do the 2-step process when that opportunity came?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, subconsciously I did. I knew it was something. I mean, you made it look so cool, EJ. How could I say no? You feel me? Like,
but yeah, I mean, being surrounded around like mentors like you and I are at EJ, and just seeing the industry on all levels, just, I mean, it's been this way for a very long time, but it's just full of fluff. And Eugene keyed the term success zombies. And it's just day after day after day, it's regurgitated in different ways. And very seldom do you actually get actionable steps, something you can take away and actually see results within your own personal life or business. And that's something that we both, agreed upon and wanted to change, wanted to be an area where people can actually come and get something actionable.
Well, I think too, from my perspective, I honestly, bro, didn't even think about it that deep. Like, I still don't really know what our why. I mean, you and I, Dustin, share a common why. And well, EJ, you probably share this why too, but we always talk about this idea of world domination. So I feel like a podcast is a good tool for that. So that's pretty much as deep as my thinking went. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I want to take over the world. Podcasts are a great way to help with that.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And my barrier to podcasting was always just the operational stuff, just the like getting it actually done. Because people have great ideas all the time. It's just, when are they actually going to get around to making it happen? And so I got to give Dustin all the credit in the world for that, because in approaching me, he kind of kicked off the process. Then he said, okay, great. When are we recording our first episode? It's like, oh shit, there's a real deadline now. I guess we're doing this, So sometimes in life, if you're not taking action, you kind of just got to get around the people who like force you into action, So thank you, Dustin, for that, man.
So it's kind of interesting because what I'm hearing, it's almost like, remember how I just told you, what are the number one question, right? Hey, EJ, what are some tips you could give me, right? And I tell them, right, what's your why and who's your target audience? And it almost seems like you guys kind of didn't know, but you guys did know. Does that sound about right, Dustin?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of had some telepathy there. We just kind of knew that, along the way we were going to fine tune this and just make it what it is today. And it's gone through some changes even so far, and we're finding our way, and it's just getting better and better. So,
yeah.
But imperfect action is going to beat no action every single time.
Yeah. And I like kind of what you said. I mean, there's a lot of fluff out there. I truly believe there's a big, fat, like bullshit meter in the fucking self-development entrepreneurship world, right?
Yeah.
And what it's doing, it's really doing a disservice to this younger generation or people who are trying to take off. You know what I mean? They're being misled. The entrepreneurship perspective is like, so like you're on blindfold, right? Because you see one thing, but it's not really the way it looks, right?
The barrier to entry is so low today that people can definitely get in, but the image that is portrayed so often is once you get in, you're just a moment away from riches, and that's a selling point for a lot of vultures out there right now. And people got to take a couple steps. It might be easier to enter, but it's a long game.
I just had a good takeaway from that. That's kind of what gave network marketing a bad rap all these years, is such a low barrier to entry. There's a lot of big promises made, a lot of image pushed. And I think that's just kind of spilled over to all of entrepreneurship these days with social media. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think also just given what kind of what's going on today too, I just love how podcasting is kind of reinforcing this more digital kind of networking and connecting type of, environment, right? And what we're able to do with it. So I love that you guys are doing it. I guess you could say my last question, and this is kind of where it could get very interesting in my opinion, but I think anytime you guys are going to experience this, I'm very, very confident I'm going to be hopping on multiple podcasts as well, right? In fact, one of the things that for the people who are listening who don't know this, podcasters love collaborating with other podcasters. That's just the way it is, right? And so what I've learned is on every podcast, you actually learn something new about yourself, right? In fact, your answer to the same question might be different from that one podcast versus the one that you do 3 months from now, right? But I guess the last thing I do want to ask you guys, or, what you guys could actually tell your audience, what do you want your listeners to really know, right? What do you really want them to know about kind of like the theme and agenda of the podcast, or maybe something that, we spoke about, right? Maybe in regards to you, Dustin, in regards to your upbringing and kind of where it's led you, Eugene, the way you actually go through this thought process, right? When you, process this information that's given to you. What's like the one thing that jumps to you right now that you want the listeners to know?
Great question.
Yeah.
That Dustin is going to answer first.
All right. I'd say the best thing is, we don't have, of course, we've got a long goal here of developing obviously our own personal brands and stuff. But the thing is, it's a safe place. Our listeners are our number one priority, above and beyond, I think, ourself, because as we've learned through our entrepreneur journey, you provide a solution, you provide value to somebody, and it will come tenfold back to you. And that's 100% what my intention is to bring not only, our own personal perspectives, but the perspectives of people that have done incredible things beyond what we've done thus far, to provide value to our listeners each and every episode. And that's, we're never going to have any sort of negative vulture-esque ideas or anything that's backing us. It's all straight value that I'm trying to provide here, that we're trying to go about.
Mm-hmm. I like that. What about you, Eugene?
And I got to follow that too, huh? So I guess my message to our audience is a little bit more general. And that's something that's been on my mind heavy as of late. Is my goal for anybody is to live their truth. Okay. And everybody's truth is going to be different. And I see the issues happening when people live a life that they realize was not their life. And at some point they catch that. That's why people have these midlife crises. They look back and they say to themselves, yo, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, whatever. And I'm not happy with any of this. They say success without fulfillment is the ultimate travesty. And I would hate for people to be embarked on their journeys that they're investing time, energy, blood, sweat, tears into, only for one day for them to look back on that journey and say to themselves, like, wait, why did I do this again? So, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, not everyone's going to like our podcast. Maybe it's not your thing. Maybe not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. That's fine. But if you don't like our podcast, go find a podcast that you do like. If you don't like podcasts, go read a book. Like, my point is, the answers that you're looking for are out there if you're willing to search for them. Okay. Now, if you do come to our podcast, I can assure you that everything Dustin said is 100% spot on. Now, he might be a little bit nicer than me. Like he said, we genuinely care about the listeners. Like, at the end of the day, like, I love y'all listeners, but I actually don't really entirely, I don't know you. So I can't say I like you. Like, I don't even know you like that. Right. But what I am trying to do is I am trying to become the best version of myself and live my best truth, so that the better I become, the more equipped I am, resourceful I am to be able to serve more people. Okay. So in that context, yes, I do care about you. But with that being said, if you hit me up right now and ask to come over, probably wouldn't let you come over. Follow me on Instagram.
100% on that one.
Yeah. Shoot me a DM, say some nice things. Hell, leave a review, like, build some value here. But nah, man, at the end of the day, bro, live your truth, become the best version of yourself. And I don't have all the answers. I'm convinced no one has the answers. But we're doing our best to figure this shit out together. And I think if we can all just remember that, we can be a lot nicer to each other because, fuck, at the end of the day, we're all equally flawed,
Mm-hmm.
Save the best for last right there, man.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you guys. You know what? I want to ask one more question, and maybe you guys can give the mic drop here just to end this special episode hosted by Ejay Cruz.
Wait, we have our signature question we have to answer too, man. We ask it to every guest. We got to ask it to ourselves, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah? Okay. You got to remind me. I forgot what that question is.
All good, bro. Ask yours. I'll ask Dustin, and then he can ask me right back.
It's kind of cheesy. It's going to be a little cheesy, so bear with me, all right? But I really want to know what it means to you guys of what being dedicated to excellence. What does that mean? What does it take to be dedicated to excellence?
Bro, that's our last question.
Ejay Cruz is paying attention, bro.
Hey.
I'm trying to think about what I said, to be honest. But yeah, go ahead. Don't copy me, all right?
Damn. See, like here's the fucked up thing is I knew this would happen at some point. I'd get asked this question, and now I'm equally as flustered as everybody who ever asked it to. Okay, what it means to me to live a life in dedication to excellence is actually basically everything I just said. Is finding what your truth is. That is your truth. And that's going to take some soul searching. That's going to take some exploring. That's going to take a lot of trial and error. But what I've learned about figuring out what your quote unquote purpose is it is an elimination process. You figure that out by going out there and taking action. Because every time you take action, that's a new data point that you collect. And you can't make a decision if you don't have any data points. So go out there, get messy, make mistakes, fail over and over and over again. So that way you can collect enough data to make that educated decision as to what my truth is. And then once you figure that out, live every day in dedication to fulfilling that truth. Because in doing so, you're going to allow the next person to do the same thing by your example. That's my definition of living a life dedicated to excellence.
Let's go. I love that. How about you, Dustin?
Drop that mic. Just drop it.
Drop that mic. That's not working now.
So in terms of excellence, in terms of individual excellence, my idea of that is it's lived through those that you affect. And that's why this podcast exists is not technically really a legacy, but just the direct effect that you can have on those that surround you, always looking to, go above and beyond for the people that are around you over, let's say in business and personal life. And it's just spreading good throughout the world each and every day and compounding that greatness upon yourself, learning more, becoming 1% better every single day so that you can always provide next level value the next day and so on and so forth. Because the better that you become as an individual, as an educated person, the amount of failures that you have to, step on and climb in order to get there, the more value you can create for the next person that stands in front of you, either a client or maybe just somebody on the side of the road. Because you never know the impact that you're going to have on the next person that you meet or the next person that you talk to or the person that's just viewing your story. And that's my goal. And that's true excellence to me, is always looking to compound that.
Oh, I love it, man. Well, guys, I appreciate you. I hope the audience who's listening really, really enjoyed this episode. And thank you guys for giving the opportunity to interview these two legendary hosts, your guys' host, right? Many more episodes to come, more wisdom, more laughter, more morals, more lessons, more actionable steps. Because I'm the podcast host, I'm going to close it out a little bit, all right?
Do your thing, player. But just make sure y'all listen to the parables too. Major key.
Nah, this is about the Dedication to Excellence podcast. Guys, again, even on episode 9, on my episode, I shared this, but, it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort to be doing this podcast. So I think if anything, if all that Dustin and Eugene, who are doing incredible work here, could ask from you guys is to really just share this podcast episode, or share the episode, the show in general, right? Share it to someone that you think could find value out of it, right? Pay it forward, right? Pay your fee. You guys do not run ads. This is all from from your hearts, right? So if you guys could do that, share it, leave a rating, right, on Apple Podcasts. It helps with visibility. They're on all podcast streaming platforms. And We appreciate you guys so much. Anything else you guys want to close out with? Dustin? Let's go. I love it. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Final question. Do you believe in aliens?
Answer on the next episode of The Parable. Stay tuned. Cut.